Season 2 of the show You was released just over a week ago now, and it's still stuck inside my mind. Although binging through it in only a day, the story has stuck with me. The show had a lot to live up to after delivering a great character and story arc in Season 1. So the real question is, did Season 2 live up to the first? And is it actually worth watching? Well, let's find out. Before I go ahead, make sure you go over to my Twitter, @BrainPilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. So without further ado, I'm BrainPilot, and here is a review of You Season 2. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers, so watch with caution. How do you top the first season? How do you even attempt to follow on from it? Well, I think that Season 2 does a great job in providing answers to many questions that we had in Season 1, such as Joe and Candace's past, and a lot more about how Joe became the creepy psycho killer that has issues with women and establishing a healthy connection with them. The story picks up with Joe, who is going by the name of Will, having now moved to LA to move away from Candace. At first, I was slightly apprehensive as to how Joe would be able to be the same type of character and get away with it in a major city such as LA, whilst trying to get away from Candace at the exact same time. However, I was proved wrong within the first episode. I loved the approach that the writers took by making Joe go to a city where everybody wants to be discovered, yet he was there for the opposite reasons: to hide. He was able to use each and every character to his advantage and manipulate them in a completely different way than the first season, because they were all completely different people and have different aspirations. Citygoers are different to people that live in a quiet, peaceful town. That was one element of the story that I was a massive fan of, and I feel as though they executed quite well. Another part of the story that I was surprised with was the development of the character Love and the way in which she turned out to be a mirror image of Joe. When we were seeing flashbacks at the end of the first season where we got to see all that she had done to get Joe to the point where she wanted him, it was a real gut-hitting moment. It was her story just as much as his, and I loved that. The way that we were drip-fed ideas that this could be possible and leaving it until we saw Joe at the point where he'd given up all hope and literally thrown away the key was perfect timing, and it allowed it to have the maximum amount of impact for the viewer. You saw Joe questioning if she was actually the one, after not really approving of her behaviour. But then he realised that he had to be like Beck to be able to get out alive. Even though it didn't end well for her in Season 1, Joe is going to continue playing a game, and I can't wait to see how that develops in Season 3. The return of Candace was something that I thought would be a bit more prominent in Season 2, as it was made out to be quite a key thing in the trailer, when I feel in reality it was a lot more of a backburner. It needed to be in the story, but I thought she'd have more screen time. However, I was quite pleased that it wasn't. I'm not really a massive fan of the character Candace, and we got to see more intimate stories between Joe and the rest of the cast, and also his internal battles with whether or not he's doing the right thing or not. There were several topics handled in Season 2 of the show, such as sexual abuse, alcohol dependency, murder, abusive relationships, and the loss of loved ones. I feel as though each of the topics being dealt with were handled in a way that was paced perfectly, and it really allowed you to get your teeth into the story and understand it completely before it was resolved or repercussions were met. Not at any point did I get bored of the show, or did I feel as though it needed to finish sooner. I didn't even feel as though it needed another episode to clear things up. It was the right amount of time, and it covered everything that was given out to us. Obviously, I'd love to watch another episode, but I feel as though the story in Season 2 was rounded up perfectly, with leaving a cliffhanger open for Season 3. I was very impressed with the story in Season 2, and I'd go as far as saying that I preferred it to the story in Season 1. The cast. The cast is something that I think makes this show stand out when compared to many others. Each individual performance brings something to the overall show, whether that be as small as Love's parents, all the way up to Joe himself. So let's take a look at the main characters and their performance. Joe. Joe's character is one that really does mess with your head. There's no reason as to why you should like him, but the way he's written makes you want to see more of the psychotic stalker and not really want to see his downfall. They've written him in a way that has made him come across as extremely charismatic, and at the end of the day, he knows when he's doing wrong, but that's no excuse. Penn Badgley is the perfect casting, and I honestly couldn't imagine anybody else playing this character, even down to his appearance. He has the smooth talker look, but when he does go in on somebody, for example when he was strangling 40, he really does look like a maniac. I love Penn Badgley in this role. Love. In season 1, I wasn't really a massive fan of Joe's main love interest, the character Beck. However, in this season, I loved Love. When we all believed that she was this innocent girl next door, she felt extremely relatable. Everybody knows a Love. She's a normal girl that has a small group of friends and is looking to develop a career. Despite living in LA, she wasn't really an LA girl. However, the character's journey is something that I was a massive fan of and really does also mess with your head, just like the character Joe. Joe really did meet his match with Love, and I didn't expect it in the slightest. I didn't think I'd see anybody as crazy as Joe in the show, but she really is on par with how mentally deranged Joe is. Victoria Pedretti does a great job in this role, and I'm looking forward to her reviving this character in season 3, as I think it's quite obvious that she'll be returning, considering she's apparently carrying Joe's child, but we'll see about that. Ellie. From the off, this was a performance that I was very impressed with. Jenna Ortega is the Gen Z teenager Ellie that's smarter than what she looks. She's a very delicate character that has been through a lot and is trying to not only give herself a better life, but help her sisters. She's an admirable character. She's essentially the Paco of season 2, and Joe feels obliged to help her, even though he is the reason that her sister's dead. Jenna Ortega is great at switching her emotions on and off, and allowing you to feel what Joe feels towards her. Protective. You want her to be safe and not be taken advantage of by Henderson, nor anybody else, and I think that's down to the performance that Ortega gives. I take my hat off to Ortega in this role. Delilah. Delilah is a character that has a hard exterior, but it's a defense mechanism due to everything that she's been through in her life. Her and Joe's relationship is something that I enjoyed watching unfold. He felt as though he had to protect both Delilah and Ellie, and he was willing to put that over his own life and well-being and the relationship that he had with Love, which I think showed a turning point in the character Joe. And that's what made it all the more worse when we saw that Joe had to lock Delilah up in his cage after finding out about what he did to Henderson. I thought Carmela Zimbardo's performance was very convincing, and you felt every emotion from her hard exterior to the fear and panic in her eyes when she found out about Joe. It's a shame that the character won't be returning in season 3 due to the fact that she was killed. Candace. Out of the whole of the show, including season 1, I think Candace is the character that I like the least, along with the performance. I find Amber Childer's performance sometimes a little stale and a bit forced. I don't entirely believe the character has gone through everything that Joe has put her through. It lacks real conviction. I understand that the character is out to get revenge, but I just don't see the trauma or slight fear that she should most likely still have in the performance. As well, I don't necessarily feel as though Amber Childers was the best casting for this role. I don't think that the role felt as though it came that naturally to her. 40. Now for the man who stole the show for many people in season 2. I felt as though at first, 40 was a character that came across as just an arrogant individual that was only out for himself and was going to be as two-dimensional as many others that we've seen in other shows. However, I was very wrong. The relationship that he formed with Joe out of jealousy of his sister turned into a brotherly type that felt very natural as it unfolded, even if Joe was going to kill him at one point. Like many other characters in the show, 40 believed that he had done something bad in the past, and it led him to become dependent on alcohol at one point, struggling to make it in LA. You want him to be happy, and James Scully did a great job in delivering a character that many people could not only sympathize for, but empathize with. Another character that it's a shame we're not going to see in season 3 of the show. Will. I couldn't not include this lovable guy in the review. Will is the only character that Joe has let go from his cage. As Joe mentioned, he can even make friends through the process that his victims seem to go through. Although brief, the character was likable, and after helping Joe, thought it only seemed right that he got set free. I'd be more than happy to see more of this character in season 3. I feel as though the majority of the cast in Season 2 are a lot more memorable than Season 1, and I think that's down to the writing of the characters and the stellar casting. I much preferred the cast in Season 2. Final thoughts. Overall, I would say that this was definitely one of the best shows that I watched in 2019. It's a shame that we had to wait a whole year to see Season 2, but it was most definitely worth the wait. Although many people think that the show is about Joe and his love interests, it's not. It's about Joe as a character and all of his relationships with every single person around him. His forever unsatisfying love that he has for somebody, his obligation to try and help people that are damaged, and his internal battle with himself and the justification of his morals. As much as we shouldn't like the character Joe, we do. And that's because on an emotional level, he feels real. Season 3 will test how we feel about the character Joe and the way he battles with being kept in his box with love. I believe that nobody's love will ever be enough for Joe, and I think that will come to fruition in Season 3. All I know is that I can't wait for it. What did you think of Season 2? Did you enjoy it? If you want to see the latest news on Season 3 of the show You, then click on the I button and it will be there. So, leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.